Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. My name is Dalton, and today we're going to be talking about Nobody. This film stars Bob Odenkirk, and it comes from the writer of John Wick and the director of Hardcore Henry. Fucking remember that movie? This film kind of centers around a guy struggling with a midlife crisis who feels like he's going through everyday life routinely and is slowly starting to resent everything around him, even the family that he clearly loves, until the film slowly reveals to us that he has a dangerous past that is finally starting to catch back up to him when he takes it upon himself to unleash this just feeling of uselessness on this poor group of bastards. One thing that you can't even get into this review without mentioning how good Bob Odenkirk is. Like, he brings the movie to a whole other level. His performance is that good. And to the writer's credit, it's a very well-written character, but Bob Odenkirk was just perfectly cast for this, and it's not something you'd imagine him playing. It's not a role you'd think he would take, and it was a perfect fit. I honestly hope he does more action movies. And obviously the big question here is, well, it's an action movie. How is the action? How's the choreography? How's the cinematography? And I can tell you both are stellar. Amazing stunt work in this film. And surprisingly, a lot of it done by Bob Odenkirk. You know, you can tell just from the wide shots of the action sequences, and you can tell that the choreography was not only practiced, but also made to look genuine and not necessarily polished or fancy. There's a little bit of gun-fu John Wick style in it, but not as much as the John Wick films. Obviously, this film is going to be compared to John Wick because of the writer, and what I will say, the first half of it is like John Wick, the second half is like Expendables, which seems like an odd thing to say. Don't worry, I won't get into any spoilers, but if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. A major positive that this film also has is the editing. This film was edited superbly. There's a brilliant montage at the beginning of the movie that kind of just tells you everything you need to know about where this character is in this particular point in his life. And this film is like a crisp 90 minutes, so the fact that they were able to tell so much story in such little time and do it in a way that was fun and engaging and funny, it was great. And that's another thing, this movie is hilarious. This is very much so an action comedy, and most of the comedy works. and another positive, all I'm going to say is Christopher Lloyd is in this movie. That's all you need to know. It's incredible. The only negative I have with this film, there's only one major one, the others are kind of nitpicky, but the only major one is the film's antagonist. Both the character and the performance I thought were very, very weak, and it's a really good actor playing the lead villain, whose name is just leaving me because it's late. But they tried to make this villain a type of sociopath, but charismatic and fun, and wants to be the wild card and unhinged type of person, but it just came across as honestly like self-parody. And that's the only part of the comedy of this film that doesn't work in any capacity, is anything involving the lead antagonist. It just didn't mesh well with the rest of the movie. And it stands out more because the rest of the movie is so good on its own that the flaws stand out, especially, like I said, just anything involving the story or relation to the antagonist just seemed very out of place. This is very much so a midlife crisis movie, and it handles it in an interesting way. And some of the stuff is touched on very lightly, some of it's more in depth of how this character actually feels. And there are bits of the movie where Bob Odenkirk monologues to people that he's kind of torturing, and it's really funny, and it peels the curtain back on how this character thinks and the reason why he takes the actions he takes, and it was actually really interesting. There's also a really interesting subplot to this movie of, I don't want to get spoilery, I'll just say about Bob Odenkirk's character's family. The way that it gives you a little bit of story bits for you to kind of form in your head what's going on without spoon-feeding it to you is something I'm a big fan of, and the screenwriter is very good at that. John Wick is riddled with stuff like that. Another negative is I hate the trope of movie opens with people in an interrogation room and then they kind of are telling the story via flashback, because it just kind of takes tension away from the main character. I know they make it out alive, and on very few exceptions does this trope not bother me, but it did bother me in this film. And I'll put one more emphasis on how good the action scenes are. They're incredible, and they're violent, and the sound effects are loud, which I fucking like. And especially for the first sequence that's on the bus that's in the trailer, you really get the sense of it's a brutal fight, but this guy's also 50-something, so he's kind of remembering how to fight as he's getting the shit kicked out of him, and it's interesting to see. Although another negative to the film is, as the film goes on, he slowly just gets more and more immortal, and the character was much more appealing when you saw how vulnerable he was. Even though he's a skilled fighter, he's not like a superhero, and by the end of the film, he kind of felt like a superhero. Other than that, I thought the film was really well done. It was a really pleasant surprise, and I'm a huge advocate for the theater movie-going experience, and luckily where I'm at, theaters are open. And I've gone to some movies in 2020, a little bit more in 2021, but this is the first time in a movie theater since 2019 that my audience clapped during and after the movie. So that really also added to the experience. But I highly recommend this movie, especially if you're into action, and Bob Odenkirk gives a career-defining performance. I'm going to give Nobody an A-. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.